Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the strange disappearance of Claudia Lawrence, a woman who has been missing for 12 years now, after she just vanished from her home in York, England in 2009. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know, I'll look into them for you. Claudia Elizabeth Lawrence was born on the 27th of February in 1974 to her parents Peter and Joan Lawrence. She was brought up in Malton and she also had an older sister called Ali. By all accounts, she had a really good childhood. Her parents had pretty good jobs, they were on a pretty decent income, and so that enabled them to lead like a comfortable life. She was privately educated in York College for Girls, and she just did everything that she wanted to. So she used to play the flute, she had horses, she did horse riding lessons. She just had a really good childhood growing up and had a good life. When she finished college, she became a trained chef and she ended up working in various different restaurants and hotels, and that was as she hit her early 20s. She did unfortunately began to dislike the unsocial hours that came along with those types of jobs. And then in 2006, she began working in the University of York's Godric College. She was the chef there in the canteen, in the main canteen. She was a really well-liked person and she was really, really kind and loving, and she didn't have any children. So in her eyes, if someone else wanted to be home for Christmas or had children or whatever, she would volunteer to do those shifts so that the other people could spend it at home with their family, with their kids, whoever they wanted to spend it with. She would literally go and do those shifts to avoid other people having to do them. That was just how kind-natured she was. In 2007, she saved up enough money to buy this terraced cottage in York in Heworth. And it actually was pretty close to where she worked. It was just 3 miles away. So if she ever needed to walk, then it was within walking distance, you know, which was really good. It's really good to be very close to your work so you don't have to spend all those hours traveling, because it can get very tedious. And when it came to the point where her car needed to be repaired, you know, it worked out perfectly because her car was in the shop and she would just walk to work. Where she lived as well was also very close to this local pub called the Nag's Head, and she would often spend, you know, some time in there with friends, socialising and things like that. Again, it was very close to home, so it was walking distance. 35-year-old Claudia was a very punctual and reliable employee, and when she didn't turn into work one day, it really worried her employer. This was the morning of the 19th of March in 2009. So her employer rings her phone. It's completely out of character for Claudia to not come in. She would always ring in if she was sick. She would never not turn up. She was always coming early. She was never late, and so something was off. It wasn't right. So they rang her and they got no answer, and then they did leave it at that because, I don't know, she was due to start at 6 a.m. She was there the previous day, no sign of illness, no sign of nothing. It was strange that she hadn't rang in, but they tried to call her and, you know, they had got no success, and so that is where they did leave it. The last known whereabouts of Claudia, what we know certainly where she went, was the previous day. She started her shift at 6 a.m. like normal. She left her shift at 2 p.m. as normal, and she was actually caught on CCTV leaving her shift. She was on foot and it was a few minutes after she'd finished. At around 3 p.m. she was caught on CCTV footage again. This was passing a shop on Melrose Gate near her home, and she was also seen by a neighbour too. That evening, she ended up calling her mother and her father, and she spoke to them on the phone for a while. And her mother said that her mood was normal, relaxed. She was completely fine. Nothing, you know, there was nothing untoward in her, how she was acting or speaking, and she was just normal. Claudia sent her final text message from her phone at 8:23 p.m. that night, and the final incoming text was at 9:12 p.m. It would be 24 hours later that the alarm would be raised as to Claudia being missing. So she was actually due to go to the Nag's Head pub to meet her friend Susie Cooper for a drink, and she never turned up. Susie was there waiting, and she waited and waited, and Claudia never came. That instantly struck a chord as being very, very wrong. It was not like her at all, completely out of character. And so she called her mobile phone. She went through to voicemail, and so she didn't get anywhere either with that. By the 20th, as Claudia's friends still could not get hold of her, she decided that she was going to ring her father, Peter. Of course, he was worried, so he rings her place of work and asks if she's been seen there. And they say that she has not been in work for the past 2 days. Peter and her friends decided that they were going to go to her house. There was something obviously very wrong. She had not been in work for 2 days, no one had heard anything off of her, and so they were frightened that she may have had an accident or something like that. As they went down to her house, they were pretty worried about what they might find inside. But when they entered her home, they found nothing. Her house was neat and tidy. Her handbag was on the side with her purse in, her bank cards, her passport. They were all inside the house. Pots were on the side, cleaned. Everything was as if nothing had happened, nothing was untoward. So the only significant item that was actually missing was her Samsung D900, a set of hair straighteners, and this bag, like this rucksack. It was she normally used it to carry her chef's whites to work with her, so they were also missing too. From what I'm saying, basically everything is showing that she got up that morning and she got ready for work. She packed her bag with the things she needed. She left her money, her passport and things with a bag at home because she just took this rucksack. So she packed this rucksack with her whites and then she left work. That's what everything was pointing to. There was no sign of anything, like any struggle or anything like that in the house. Everything was where it should be, apart from those items. So it was speculated that on the 19th at 5 a.m, she set off for work, but she actually never made it into work. So something must have happened to her on that short journey. I believe it was a 45-minute journey for her to get to work. The police were called at around 2 p.m. and they met up with Peter. They didn't, by all accounts, take it too seriously at first. She wasn't a vulnerable adult, and there were no signs of anything untoward in her house. They just kind of figured that she'd gone off and that she'd just come back. Despite that, they did scour the route that she would have taken, that they thought she would have taken to work from her home, and they did put out a public request for information. Her family were convinced, though, that she had actually been abducted. The intensity of the search increased after her face was put all over the newspapers and was all in the news. And a few days later, police told reporters that they believed that she had been abducted. They searched everywhere. There was missing persons posters on the lamppost in York. Police went through all the fields, all the undergrowth, everywhere that they could to try and find her. They searched through streams, bodies of water. They had dogs out. They spoke to anyone and everyone. The thing was, though, is that digitally she didn't really leave a digital footprint at all. She didn't have a PC or use the internet at home, and she also didn't use the internet on a phone, and so there was just no way. There was also no tracker on her phone, so there was just no way of them tracing her through that. She didn't own a smartphone, and so it made it really difficult to be able to utilize the phone for anything. Now, as I said, we do know that she received a text that night, and she did actually reply to it about 8:30 on the 18th of March. But then when she received a text after 9, 12 minutes past 9, whatever time it was, she didn't reply to that. Now, that could have just been that she was asleep at that point, or she just literally couldn't be bothered to reply to it. Because from everything the police found, it looked like she did set off for work in the morning. So I personally think that that text was just either she was already asleep because she had to get up really early. She had to get up at 5 a.m. the next day. Well, earlier than that, she had to set off at 5 a.m. So she probably would have had to get up at 4 a.m. So obviously she's going to go to bed quite early, and that is why I presume, at least, that she didn't answer that text. Not that something untoward had happened to her the previous night. The police did manage to analyse her phone to the point where they discovered that it was deliberately turned off at 12:10 p.m. The next day, within an 8-mile radius of York, they went back and they searched her home for a second time, but that was kind of discounted as a crime scene, like, whatsoever, because there was just nothing there. There was nothing, no sign of struggle. Everything was in place. There was no robbery. There was just nothing. You normally, if somebody has been taken in a house, you'll find things out of place or smash things or something, but there was just nothing. Everything was neat and tidy, and so they just did discount that as being like a crime scene. Now, apparently she did have a few relationships with various men, which she did keep very private. according to, from what I've read, her family didn't really know much about it either. It is said that possibly some of them were married, and so with that in mind, maybe her disappearing was a result of something going wrong within that. If she was having an affair with somebody and then met foul play as a result of it, kind of thing. Another theory flying around at the time was that she had gone to Cyprus. She spent a lot of time in Cyprus and they thought that she'd just gone there. But that was discounted pretty early because she left her things at home. She literally left her passport at home. She ain't getting to Cyprus without that. And she had all her bank cards there and everything. So that was pretty discounted pretty much straight away. The only CCTV cameras on the direct route that Claudia may have taken that day on, going to work on the 19th of March was outside of Melrose Gate post office, and it didn't pick up Claudia going past it. Now that's not to say that she didn't make it past there, because the way the camera's angled, she could have missed it. Like, rather than walking directly in front of it, she could have been across the street or whatever and just not been in view of that camera. So that's not to say that she didn't make it that far, but that's literally the only CCTV on that route, and she wasn't caught on it. Crime Stoppers offered a reward of £10,000 to, leading to any information on her, which led to the arrest and conviction of anyone linked to her disappearance. And from that, the police did receive so many calls. There was 1,200 of them, all offering information on Claudia. Crime Watch would also feature a reconstruction of her last known movements too. Even though they had all these calls, it still didn't lead to any more information known about Claudia. Detectives were pretty certain that she left for work on the 19th of March in that morning, and that something must have happened to her between Heworth Road and Godric College where she worked. And a number of witnesses did come forward to say that they saw somebody matching the description of Claudia with this man. This was around 5:35 a.m, which, if she would have left work for work and gone on that route, would have actually matched up. This man that she was talking to was smoking with his left hand, and the police actually decided to call him a left-hand smoker. That is how they refer to this man, because they still don't know his identity. And they were talking on Melrose Gate Bridge. A man was cycling past at that point and saw someone in a black hoodie with a cigarette in his left hand. Another driver drove past and said that they saw this pair arguing. But again, it's not a confirmed sight of Claudia, it's just somebody that matches her description. And we don't even know if the person driving past and saw these two arguing was even the same couple, because that's also not been confirmed. It might not have even been the same couple that the cyclist saw. 6 weeks after Claudia's disappearance, her case was reclassified as a murder case. Well, a suspected murder case. But they still found nothing. With all the tips and all the information that had come in, they literally found nothing. 2 months later, the police released the CCTV footage of a suspicious person who was a person of interest who was lurking around Claudia's home at around 5 a.m, and this was the morning of her disappearance. This was likely to be a man, and if it was a man, he was seen coming in and out of this alleyway close to Claudia's home. Over the years, they also released more footage of this man, believed to be the same man, if it was a man. And he was also walking around the area at 7:15 p.m. on the Wednesday, 18th of March, which was the day before Claudia went missing. And the last day that she was ever seen. Was this man her abductor, is the question on a lot of people's minds. The police did ask this person to come forward, and they never have. They have still not identified this guy. Now, if this person had nothing to hide, why have they not come forward and identified themselves? That's what I'm thinking along the lines of, this could potentially be the person that took her. But obviously, speculation, I do not know. It could be that this person does not know about this case and, didn't even realise it was them. There could be a logical explanation as to why they haven't come forward. Or they're scared. They just might think that police might not believe them, and therefore they don't want to reveal their identity. It really is urged, though, that this person does come forward, even if it's just to clear their name. On 13th of May in 2014, a 59-year-old man was arrested, and this was on the suspicion of Claudia's murder. He was later released without charge. In July of the same year, a man called Paul Harris was arrested under suspicion of perverting the cause of justice. He was also quickly released later without charge, and the police had actually excavated a section of his cellar. They had followed Claudia's pings to that area prior to her going missing, and so they thought that maybe, she was under the cellar, but they found nothing, and he was later cleared. Other arrests were made later on, But again, they were all cleared. Everyone that had been arrested with regards to this case has been cleared and not one person has been charged. In 2015, forensics went to Claudia's house again because this time technology had improved greatly and it wasn't available then, but obviously in 2015 it was. So they went back to the crime scene and they actually found some DNA and some fingerprints. That also led nowhere because the problem with it was the fingerprints were partials, I believe, and didn't match up with anyone because they just basically didn't have it all. And the DNA fragments were that tiny that they just couldn't really test it, and so that also led nowhere. Not too long ago, there was a link made with this convicted killer who is called Christopher Halliwell from Swindon. This is about 4 hours away from York, bearing in mind. He was convicted of the murder of 2 women and linked to a number of missing women. And witnesses have come forward to say that they saw Christopher and Claudia talking shortly before she disappeared. Although he did live 200 miles away, he did have ties to the area. I believe his father lived like an hour away, so it wasn't a massive stretch for him to get there. Yeah, okay, 4 hours drive to get to York when there's no reason behind it, but his father lived an hour away, so, he could have just travelled there after visiting his father. The description that people have given of this left-handed smoker is also very similar to Christopher's, but nothing has come of that either. Even though there are links to Claudia's case, it just hasn't progressed any further with Christopher. Whether it ever will, I don't know. A fresh appeal was made by the police pretty recently on the anniversary of her disappearance in March of this year. Police have said that it has been difficult to investigate because Claudia didn't use social media and she also didn't have a smartphone. 9 people have been questioned in total in this case, but no charges have ever been brought, as I've said. They also stated that although the investigation has since been wound down, they would of course look into any new leads. And that's really it. Nothing more is known on Claudia's case. What happened to her? Who did this to her? We literally have no idea. If you know anything, as small as it could be, anything like that, then please do ring the authorities because you could be the key to cracking this case. But yeah, this was tragic. She literally got up for work to go and walk to work and then she vanished and there's no leads, there's no nothing. Her case remains unsolved to this day. After all of these years, we still don't know what happened to her. But yeah, that is the end of the case. If you enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to join the pack and watch other videos. To my regulars, I appreciate you as always. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Claudia Lawrence. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.